Hey there, welcome to the Good, the Bad, and the Sequel Q&A. My name's Doug. You're in for a doozy this week. This is one of my favorite interviews because he's directed so many movies that I love. I love B movies. I love canon movies, and the movies behind me, I love so much. So the fact that I got to talk with director Sam Firstenberg was such an honor. Of course, we talked about his time at Canon, but his journey from Jerusalem to Hollywood is one that you're going to absolutely love. So do me a favor before I start the interview. Two things. One, subscribe, hit the button right now. So in the future, you can get alerted about all these awesome interviews that we have and movie sequel reviews. And if you want to check out our content, if it's easier for you, you can just go to our website, sequelsonly.com. And also two, I'll put it in the notes below. Man, you got to check out Sam's book. This is only a little piece of the stories he has to tell. And Sam is a phenomenal storyteller. So this book, I cannot wait to read. Stories from the Trenches, Adventures in Making High-Octane Hollywood Movies with Canon veteran Sam Firstenberg. Man, so check that out, subscribe, and enjoy the interview. Here are you.
Excellent.
How you doing, man?
Whoa, what a background. Doug, you're prepared, my God.
You're the king of the sequel.
The king of the sequel, that's correct. That's me.
That's so cool, man. I think it's so fascinating, your arc, like reading your biography, which I loved reading on your website, and just going back and revisiting a lot of the films. And I watched last night the one that you mentioned, Eric Roberts and Lisa London was in. And that was a pretty cool
alternate
movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
That was so cool, man. So what I like to do with these is just figure out, how people got started, some early memories that you had, then talk about a few of the sequels you worked on and other stuff. So where did you grow up?
Doug, let me just ask you, you have actually, I probably watched it. So you have a website that you do podcasts, right?
Yeah.
And will this be video or audio only?
Well, if you don't want me to do video, sometimes people like seeing the video.
I don't care. No, it's your.
I will do both.
Asking just to know. No.
Yeah, no, I do the audio for the podcast part of it, and then I have the video.
Sure.
People sometimes like.
Once we're done, you let me know. I will help you to promote it in my Facebook page, etc. And if you need photos, stills, let me know. I will direct you to a Dropbox with all kind of photos. If you decide to do so. Okay, let's go.
So let's start this party. So Sam, what I like to do is like any good story, has a beginning. So where's your beginning start? Where'd you grow up?
I grew up in Jerusalem, from all places, in the holy city of Jerusalem. And in our neighborhood, it was in the 50s. I was born 1950. So it was 50s. And in our neighborhood, I lived in a neighborhood, and we had a neighborhood theater, movie theater, not the center of the city, not at downtown, but then our neighborhood. And this neighborhood theater probably ran second runs, when it came back after the top theaters in the center. And I watched a lot of movies. I would say from the age of 7, I would say 8, and matinee, not in the evening, the double bill in the afternoon. And what I remember is a lot of Westerns, a lot of American movies, a lot of Westerns, World War II movies. I don't have a vivid memory of the movie, but this was the mixture. But we also saw, because it was Israel, we saw Italian movies, we saw, we'd see Turkish movies once in a while. So, but French movies, but the main diet was American movies of the 50s, gangsters movies, Westerns, crime movies, occasionally musical. So this was my beginning as a child, my beginning with cinema. With movies.
Do you remember the first one that I know you said you saw so many doing the double billing in the matinees. Do you remember the first one that you remember? Because I know you like Hitchcock. Was it like an early Hitchcock movie?
No, the earliest movie I remember, but this was really young age, even earlier, was the movie Bambi, the Disney movie Bambi, the animated movie. I remember it vividly. But now we are talking about maybe when I was 5. My father took me. I remember the fire sequence. I specifically remember of course,
Traumatizing. It's kind of a traumatizing movie for a kid.
But actually, among the, but that's as a kid, as a young, very young. But you know what I remember? What impressed me a lot? I remember Bridge Over the River Kwai. I remember it vividly. World War II movie. The details. Maybe I saw it again, maybe later, and that's why I jagged the memory. But the westerns are all mixed up together. It's like one long western. But Bridge Over the River Kwai, I remember.
What age were you? What was the moment that you said, like, hey, I want to pursue film?
I grew up in an age that we did not know. We didn't have so much information like today, kids available, people your age. So no internet, no magazine. If there were magazine, there were gossip magazines about the stars, not about how you make movies. So we didn't have any idea how you make movies. So, but what I knew that movies are made. Of course, later I became a high school, teenager. I saw movies in much more serious way, and I started to understand different movies, American movies, non-American movies, etc. But we were not conscious, I would say, or aware that actually there is process, that there are writers, that there is a director at this age. I enlisted when I was 18 years old, finished high school. I enlisted to the military. It's a mandatory in Israel. It's a mandatory service, 3 years. And while I was in the military, and I was in a natural way, I became the projectionist of we would see a movie once a week, a 16mm movie. In a natural way, I became the projectionist and also the one who will choose from a list which movies we will see or which movies the others will see according to my taste. And then I started to understand, okay, this is films, and films have histories, and there are different type of films, and there is a Hitchcock, and there is a John Ford, and etc. And I said, wow, I like it. I like to tell stories. I knew, this is a natural instinct. You don't choose it. It's a talent. I was the kid who came back from the movies to the neighborhood, to the building or wherever we live, and sit on the sidewalk and tell the stories, tell the movie to the other kids. So this was me. And so I said, okay, that's what I want to do. I want to tell stories through this medium, through this cinema. So we are talking now 1920, this is and still we didn't have, or at least I didn't attempt to find out how people make movies. Now, as I say, I lived in Jerusalem, and then I was in the military all over the country. But there was an industry in Israel. There was a film industry.
Oh, okay.
Because now we are talking about the 68, 69, 70. There was an industry, but the industry concentrated only in one place, Tel Aviv, which is the biggest city in Tel Aviv, in Israel. So it's like Hollywood. It was a small industry, nothing big. Once in a while, an Israeli movie will come out. But I didn't know anybody who was in this business or any. The big name was Menachem Golan, later to become the head of Canon, but he was the biggest producer in Israel when I was a teenager. So I was not connected to this world of how do you making movies and how do you make movies. I only knew that this is it. That's how I want to. That's what I want to do. I want to work in this field, in this industry, in this type of entertainment, which is called movie making.
What were some of the movies that were made out of Tel Aviv? What kind of genre were they shooting?
At the time, there were only two types of movies that I can remember. Either they're artistic movie, some an artist. The early movie makers in Israel, they studied either in France or in England. So if they wanted to become a movie maker, let's say you take Boaz Davidson, he's famous, he's older than me. So he went to the London Film School in London. Some others went to France and they came back and they made movies. So either they came up with notion that they are artists, so they have to scrap some money and make artistic independent movie, or it was the industry that is intended to sell tickets to make movie in order to sell tickets, and those movies were not personal expression, but rather comedies. Most of them were comedies. They, once in a while, they were trying here and there to make a thriller, but they were mainly comedies, and the comedies were based on a conflict between rich and poor, mainly.
Yeah.
So it would be love story conflict. He's from a rich family, she's from a poor family. She comes from a good neighborhood, he comes from a bad neighborhood, etc. An equivalent to in Israel, we didn't have, what here in the United States, different races, but we have people who came from all over the world. It was the beginning of the state, 50s, 60s. Immigrants came from all over the world. So you had the immigrants, there were immigrants who came from Arab countries, Muslim countries. There were immigrants who came from European countries. So this was also a conflict. A nice boy from a family from Eastern Europe meets a girl from a family that came from Morocco. Conflict of interest, that it has to be resolved, usually in a comical, melodramatic way. So those were the main movies, those comedies, melodrama comedies of conflicts of society. And people loved them. There was before television. There was no television in Israel in the 60s.
Oh, really?
And so this was as a visual, visual. This was. Now, of course, American movies were big, in theater because there was no television. But once in a while, when there was an Israeli movie Hebrew-speaking movie, people flocked. They usually went to see them, but they were mainly comedies.
Wow. So from there, so you get out of the military. What was your first step to knowing, like, you knew, hey, this is for me? What was your first step?
So I was involved in entertainment here and there in different way of entertainment. My hobby through high school, etc., was photography. I was a photographer. I knew how to develop. I was devoted photographer, busy with it as a hobby. And while I was in the military, it so happened that I became also a part of an entertainment troupe. Singing and sketch. Those are kind of troupe that entertain soldiers and entertain group. So I was part of it. I was not a great actor or a singer or not a great voice, but I was in entertainment. I was always involved in entertainment and photography. So theater, photography, stage, and photography really leads itself to cinema. You have stage, photography. So I decided it was 21, 3 years. I finished the military service, 21. I said, I'm going to Hollywood to study movie making.
Wow.
How do you make movies? I even have I even had an opportunity. I didn't even have to buy a ticket because our troupe, the one that I told you, the entertainment troupe, was sent on a mission to the United States to some kind of propaganda type of to tour all campuses in the United States to promote the Israeli culture. Let's put it this way.
Oh, really?
So I was here in a tour, 3 months or 4 months tour, starting from New York all over the north and the south, and ended up in New York 3 months. It was 1972, when the tour, and then I met some people. I started to ask. And part of the tour was in Los Angeles, of course, obviously. We came to Los Angeles, and every place our hosts will take us places to see. And here in Los Angeles, where where I live now. I'm talking to you from Los Angeles. Our host took us to Universal to see Universal. And, you see, there is the tour and they show you the stages and they show you how special effect. It was 72. It was primitive compared to the tours today.
Yeah.
Anyway, the tour ends on some kind of a hill over the hills over that looks over Los Angeles, over the valley, and that's the end of the tour. I was so impressed. I'm looking over the city and I tell myself, that's it. This is my place. I was made for here. This place was made for me. I'm coming back. We ended the tour in New York. I told my friend, adios, amigos. Thank you very much. I'm not going back with you. He says, what? So, I'm staying in. That's it. I'm staying in the US, of course. And I did in New York. They went back. The troop back to Israel. I stayed in New York. And from New York, I came back to Los Angeles with the sole purpose of studying filmmaking. How do you make movies?
Did you know anybody in the States at the time? Did you have any family or anyone over here?
I didn't know anyone that much. I had a family here in Los Angeles, in Long Beach, not in Los Angeles.
Oh, okay.
Remote family. And this was my anchor. I needed just a place but I didn't know anyone. I traveled with nobody, just by myself, just like this. I came and like a pioneer going to the West. I'm going to study film. I don't know anybody. I don't know anything. So I camped with them a little bit in Long Beach. I actually started to take cinema classes in Long Beach in the City College, which was quite eye-opener. I'll tell you about it. But then I moved to Los Angeles and I enlisted in a film school here after I took a few classes in Long Beach, here in Los Angeles, but Columbia College of Arts, which was dedicated to filmmaking, television and filmmaking.
That's great. So then from there, when was your first time? Did you know at that time you wanted to be like behind the camera, or you just were any job within working in film? Did you think about writing, producing, or just directing?
As I mentioned before, I didn't know. Truly, I'm telling you, this is really the truth. I'm 21 years old, 22, 72. I didn't know anything about the process, how you make movie. You know that most people in the world, until today, I believe, most people in the world believe that movie is being made like a play on the stage, that you start to film, you just take a camera, you put your actors, you start in scene one, number one, line number one, and you start to film the movie and you go on until you finish the movie. That's still most of the people in the world, that's how they believe that. That's how you conceive. You think it's a stage play and you film it. Now, of course, I understood because I told you, because I was a photographer, so I understood you need a camera. I knew about film camera, 8mm, those tiny 8mm camera that people, family movies. So I wasn't that ignorant, but so I understand. You take a camera, you film, you make a movie. Okay. Who are the people? Is there edit? I didn't know there was editing. Now, I told you when I went to Long Beach, before I even started to study making movies, I took those classes which are called film appreciation. And that opened my eyes really, because for the first time I saw Japanese movies, Italian movie, neorealism, samurai movies, a whole field of movies that I didn't have a chance to see in theaters, just going to theaters and seeing commercial cinema. And I started, those classes, I started to understand, there is a director, and the director has a point of view and different tastes. So Kurosawa makes different movie from John Ford, and John Ford makes different movies from Hitchcock. So I started to understand there is a filmmaker with a taste that brings his talent and makes a different movie from each other. So I went, then I told you, I went to real film school, and I didn't have any specific goal or role that I will take within this movie making. I started to see, okay, there is a cinematographer. You have to make sure it's in focus. There is a focus puller. Editing, you are editing the movie, you are recording sound, So somebody is in charge of the wardrobe, somebody is in charge of the background, the scenery. So I started to learn. I saw that there are many. It's a group effort. It's a team effort to making movie. It's not like crazy guy that suddenly makes a movie, unless you're an animator, unless you make an animation. And I started to understand, and I immediately, the school was 3 years, but it took a very short time for me to understand that I am a storyteller. I'm not here. I mean, I like it. It was really nice. When I came to school, I had this feeling when I started school, the first semester, there is this strange feeling, and it has to do with many fields, not necessarily in movie. I suddenly I was among my peers, because everybody in school, the teachers and the students, they all came to make movies. And this feeling that suddenly you are in your world, for the 22 years you were looking for something, and suddenly you found it. You're with your people. You're swimming with the same fish like you. So this was epiphany. This was great. Suddenly everybody was talking movies. Suddenly everybody around me was interested in the same thing. But I realized, different people, of course, they have different interests, makeup, wardrobe, whatever. I knew I'm a storyteller. Somehow I will end up in the position of the storyteller, the one who tells stories, which in the movie making is the director. So the one who put together the visual story is the director. So even when I was on my first year, like second semester, which is in film school, it takes time until they assign you to make movies. You go this class, that class, camera class, editing class. But I was impatient, and in the first year I already made a short movie. But that's not a big deal, because we know about people who made, Spielberg made the short movie when he was a high school kid. So he had more knowledge, because he lives here in Hollywood, in Southern California, than I did. But I understood immediately. So I already started to making short movies. I knew photography, so I learned how to operate the camera. Editing, very quickly I learned editing. So I understood that this is where I'm going. Now I'll tell you something else, even though you're not asking me a question. In my first year, we had a teacher. One of our teachers was the head of one of the station of the filming, not filming, actually the camera department of one of the television station here in town, Channel 13. And maybe he realized that I'm good with the camera, because I had so much experience as a teenager. So he invited me to come and work in the station. And I passed the test. So within 1 or 2 semesters, I was already a cameraman in a television station. But this is those huge video cameras, like the new studio camera. So I was working right there. So I was already, this is not movie making by all means, but it's a visual way of telling ideas through visual means. And within a year, I think my second year in school, 73, suddenly I was invited to a party, and the party that I was told that the big producer Menachem Golan from Israel will be in the party, and maybe I'll tell you about it. But anyway, I started to work with him, and I started to work on a movie that he produced here, Lepke, the movie Lepke with Tony Curtis. And I was a runner, basically a runner. The guy who does whatever.
I read that. That's what I think so cool about you, is that you would do anything. Really, you just wanted to be involved, Yeah.
But go back. But once again, I met there. The cinematographer was Andrew Davis. He became a director later, famous director. Yeah. And we kind of befriended. He was already cinematographer. I was just running and bringing coffee. And he looked at me and said, "Listen, I see you want to be a movie maker. You have to leave this. Don't do the coffee business and the chair business anymore. You have to be next to the director. You do everything to become assistant director, because you will be a director one day." So back to school. Yeah. So back to your question. Eventually, I understood that I have to be a director to tell visual stories. Yeah.
So when was your first opportunity? Obviously, Andrew said, "Hey, you need to get into that assistant director chair." Did you have that opportunity?
So I'll tell you this. I went to school 3 years, of course, and while in school, myself, I made. You can say make movie, not necessarily directing, but everything together. I made like three movies through the school. But in school, there is a great opportunity when you go to film school. Everybody wants to make a movie, and they need volunteers to come and help. I'm telling you, I volunteered to every movie of every student in school, because I figured out you learn from everything. Every time you're in the setting experience, and not anything, they need you to hold the boom they need you to record the sound. They need you have to do something. So this is a great opportunity for people who go to film school. So I tried everything. So I was already involved in many, many short movies because of the school. And then one day, and I'm operating a camera, TV studio, TV station that to me, it was so boring. I was going out of my mind. News, that's really boring to me. Some other people find it more interesting. And there was some opportunity. Once in a while, we were doing wrestling before the wrestling became big thing. Nice. So doing wrestling with the camera. Bozo the Clown, I used to operate camera.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. and then one day I was invited to a New Year Eve party, and I was told Menachem. I knew the name Menachem Golan because I grew up in Israel. He was the biggest producer in Israel. Director, and then I meet him, and I'm a film student. He's a big director. He just made a big movie, Casablanca, and he sold it. So he's telling me, as part of we're talking, I say he's producing a movie here in Hollywood. The name of the movie, Lepke. It's a gangster movie. It was after The Godfather. Everybody was making gangster movies, and Tony Curtis asked him, "Can I work with you?" I'm a young film student. He said, "Yeah, no problem. Basically, if you're not expensive, you can come and work with me." Okay. So I came, and they were preparing. It was during the preparation. It was not filming yet of this movie. And the company built a big set. Here, there is a Culver City studio, which used to be the Selznick studio, where they filmed Gone with the Wind. And that's where they were building in the back lot, like a street in New York from the 30s, the gangster era. And I became part of the art department. Again, just they send me here and there. I didn't know anything specifically. But from the first day of filming, it was the first day of filming, I realized that, I have to be here where they're filming, not where they're building sets. So I kind of switched myself to become the runner on the set. And as I told you, just bring the chairs, bring the coffee, go and bring this, go call this guy. And I was next to the director. I decided if I want to learn movie making, I have to stay right in this area.
Yeah. And
this was my opportunity to observe, to learn, to see how you put together a movie. What are the mechanics of of controlling crowd, of leading a crew, big crew? The crew is big in movie making, and what are the mechanics of? And when the filming day was over, I didn't go back home. I realized, I see that the top guys, the cinematographer, the director, they're going somewhere. I said, "Where are you going?" He said, "We're going to see the dailies." "What is there seeing the dailies?" "Oh, we have to see everything we filmed yesterday." I said, "Oh, can I come with you?" "Yeah, come with." So then I went with them every day after work, just sitting way back on the theater to watch the dailies. And then I realized the director is going to talk with the director every day. I said, "Can I come with you?" He didn't mind. He said, "Yeah, you can come." So I used to come and sit in the editing room, see he's talking with the editor. So, so this was my encounter with real professional commercial movie making. And I made the best out of it.
Wow. That's so cool that were you always like that as a kid before you knew what you wanted to do? Like, you're kind of fearless. You went to the States, even though you had family in Long Beach, but you're fearless with that and fearless to act, ask these people who are hotshots, so to speak, on set, like the number one and number two. "Hey, can I do this? Can I do that?" That's amazing.
I would say if I remember myself, I was shy in a sense that I didn't put myself up front. I didn't like, I wasn't the one who will brag that I know already everything, but I was not afraid to ask, to push myself into places, but in a, let's say in a shy way, in the back. I wasn't the one who pushed forward. Yeah. And, oh, I already know, let me do it. No. I was the one, as I say, I would sit on the back of the theater, just watch the dailies. I was willing to, next movie, the company decided to make another movie, because they already had all the wardrobe from the era those gangster period pieces, wardrobe and set. And so they decided to maximize the investment to make another movie right away. So they made another movie with Jack Palance.
Nice.
The Four Deuces was the name of the movie, Jack Palance. Also a gangster movie. So, immediately I asked to continue. So I was already elevated. I was not anymore the runner. I worked to the art department, set dressing, in the set dressing department. So, move the chairs, move stuff on the set. It was winter, put the fake snow all over. So I was already in a professional already. Not you don't need a lot of knowledge, just follow instructions. But to seize opportunity, that's how I would characterize it. You need to seize opportunity, sometimes by asking, but many times by volunteering. Yes, I will do it. So right away, here you get 2 movies right away. And then I heard somebody told me about another movie, not made not by a student, but a very, very low budget, some independent low budget movies. We're looking for professional people that will work for cheap. So I immediately contacted me and a friend that was a friend. Name of the movie was not the famous The Gambler movie, but another low budget movie, The Gambler. So here I already, because the crew is so small, so I have to lay tracks for the camera, for the dolly. So, you move on. And then Andy Davis had a chance to photograph, to film another movie, low budget movie, The Eyes of Dr. Cheney. The title changed. Now it's called the House of Doom or something. Mansion of Doom.
Oh yeah, I wrote that down. Mansion in the Dune.
Mansion
that's
of
like
Doom.
your
But then
first
it was
credit.
And this was Charlie Bent. This was the first movie that Charlie Bent, the producer, produced. Later, he became a big producer of low-budget sci-fi type of movies. But this was the first one, and they were looking probably for cheap labor. So Andy called me. I had a friend, electrician, much more knowledgeable than me. He called us too. Would you guys come over, work with it? And boom! Suddenly, I found myself. I'm the grip because there was one grip, one electrician. This was a small, tiny crew. Director was Michael Pataki, the actor Michael Pataki. And so not arguing about the money, seizing the opportunity, not how much you are going to pay me. Yes, I'll come, whatever. I didn't even ask how much they will pay at the end of the week. Whatever the check came or the cash, whatever the case, at the end of the week, we were happy. I had a very minimal means. I needed very little, I was a student. All along, I'm still a student in school,
Yeah.
Everything I'm telling you, I'm still a student going to classes. So I juggled myself between like working and running. And I mainly, if it was night shoot, I would take day classes. If it was a day shooting, I would take night classes. I'm juggling between trying to finish film school and all those little movies. But you just, if you're really devoted, that's my opinion. And I talk with young people today, young filmmakers. If you are really devoted, you believe that this is your calling to tell stories cinematically, you do whatever it takes to be involved. Just you do it. Unless you're so talented, listen, when you hear other stories, it's kind of the same. When you hear the Steven Spielberg story, he came to Universal and he worked with no salary for a year or two. He was just working. Nobody knew why he's there, and he was working. Never asked for money, just showing up and working. So it's kind of the same.
Oh man. So how does it go from there? So that I think Mansion of the Doomed, I think it's around 76, 75-ish.
Yes.
So how do
Even
you get
four.
from there to One More Chance? What are you doing in those 5
So
years?
I will tell you, I started to work mainly with Menachem Golan and Yoram Globus.
Oh, nice.
They had a company. Later, they became Canon. They didn't have Canon at the time. They had a company which was called Ameri Euro Picture. And this company produced those two movies that I told you, Lepke and Four Deuces. And then they had an office and they needed a runner, real runner. I had a motorcycle at the time. So I became, I was the office runner, until I found between movies. And basically you go, I would drive with the motorcycle to agency, bring a script, take script. No, there were no email. We think about the thing. We cannot believe that there was a time when there was no email.
Yeah.
And bring a contract, so just run around town, studios, agencies. And they were basically trying to make another movie, third movie here in Hollywood. But for some reason that I didn't understand at the time, financing, they couldn't make it. They couldn't make it. And one day, Golan tells me, I'm going to make, he put together a movie, but they're going to shoot it in Israel, back in Israel. But it's an American movie. It was called, I think it was called 52 Pickup. The star was Joe Don Baker. We'll go back, and I'm going, he says, I'm closing the office, we're going back to Israel. No, I'm sorry, not the Diamonds with Robert Shaw. The movie was Diamond with Robert Shaw.
Oh, nice.
And later on, Richard Roundtree was added, Shelley Winters. He said, I'm going to Israel, and I had to close the office. I said, can I come with you? I want to work with you in Israel. I'm still going to school. I said, if you pay your way to Israel, you can come. You will help us as one of the assistant directors. And I knew I wanted to be assistant director. So, of course, I quit school for one semester or whatever, delayed. And I bought a ticket. I went to Israel. And I worked there as an assistant to the assistant director, second assistant, what they call it, third assistant director, assistant to the assistant director. And the movie was shot in Israel, in Tel Aviv, Bethlehem, Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, with Robert Shaw, Richard Roundtree, Barbara Hershey, and Shelley Winters. They were the stars. It's a heist movie. And I was assistant to the assistant director. And one day, Menachem Golan is a very temperamental figure, very temperamental, was. And one day he had a big fight with the assistant director. They're screaming, shouting at each other. He said, I will fire you. The guy said, you don't have to fire me. I'm walking out. I don't want to be work with you. Oh, he walks away. The Menachem director is now without assistant. He looks around, he sees me. Now you are the assistant director. Go get Robert Shaw. Suddenly, out of the blue, I'm an assistant director.
Wow.
In a movie, big movie. Considerably, it's not a studio movie, but you have to deal with stars. Robert Shaw, after the movie Jaws, he was a big star after the movie Jaws. And okay, so I worked until the end of the movie, and I came back to the United States to finish school. I had only one more semester. I finished school. Okay, I'm done with school. And Menachem Golan and Yoram Globus, they're coming back. Again, they need a runner. Okay, I'm back with them, running with the office here and there. And then they put together another movie, 52 Pickup, with Joe Don Baker. By now, I'm a certified assistant director.
Yeah.
So Golan says, we're going back. Do you want to come? I finished school. Okay, everything, I had a degree. I achieved what I came here to. I said, okay, I'll come with you back to Israel. I got all my stuff with the motorcycle and everything back to Israel. And they had offices in Israel, in Tel Aviv. It was Noah Film, like Noah and the Ark was the name of the company. It was a famous company. And they produced a lot of movies, and they were intending to do this 52 Pickup. And we are preparing, and I'm preparing. The writer was a famous writer, Lou Leonard, that wrote a lot of crime books, Los Angeles. It was one of his books. So he came with us to Israel, not Lou Leonard something, I forgot his name, Leonard. And my job was to travel with, he adapt the script. The screenplay was an American screenplay story. So he had to adapt it to Israel. So I was traveling with him in Israel. He's adapting the script, writing the script. And suddenly again, something happened financially. They couldn't put the movie together. I don't know. They canceled the production. So now I'm here. I traveled all the way from US to Israel, and the movie that I was supposed to be first time the assistant director, the main assistant director, is canceled. Menachem Golan tells me, don't worry, I'm producing another movie at the same time with a different director here, a Hebrew, an Israeli movie. And there is this young new director, his name is Boaz Davidson. You're going to be his assistant now. So I was handed over to the other production with Boaz Davidson. Name of the movie is Lupo Goes to New York, an Israeli Hebrew-speaking movie. And I became, and I worked on this movie as an assistant director. And by default, I don't know if to call it by default or by the mechanism of this young industry, the film, this is 1975. It's still a young industry in Israel, very, very young industry. And they make a lot of those comedy movies that I told you. And this was one of them. And so I became, boom, suddenly I became one of the sought after assistant directors in Israel. It was not a profession that was understood at the time. In the European system, in the European movie making system, the assistant director is really assisting the director, and one day he will become a director. In the American way, the assistant director is the guy who runs the set. He's not assisting the director, really. Yeah. He's running the set, and one day he will become production manager, not a director.
Yeah.
So that's a different way. So suddenly they had this guy who came from Hollywood, which was me, and I know how to run the set, the way the assistant director in the American sense of way. So I became an assistant director. For the next 4 years, I was working nonstop in domestic and imported, what we call over there foreign movies.
Yeah.
So those are movies who come to Israel. They are not Israeli movies to shoot in Israel. Among the movies, the big one that I was assistant director was Operation Thunderbolt, which was Menachem Golan directed. Big military action movie about the raid of Entebbe. And there is a lot of biblical movies are coming to Israel because they want to shoot in the location. And after this 4 years of being assistant director in a lot of Israeli movies, working with famous Israeli director, Israeli stars, I worked. The last movie was a huge biblical movie. The Life of Jesus was 9 months production, huge production, 7-hour kind of a video movie, cassette. And so I was there, I spoke English and I knew how to run the set. This was, and by the end of these 4 years of many movies as assistant director, I realized, I kind of thought about it. This is not what I want to do. I don't want to be assistant director. It's not leading me in the right direction. I want to tell stories. I want to make movies. Within those 4 years, I made a short movie in Israel as a director, as a movie maker, as a creator. Short movie, 30 minutes for the Israeli television. At the time, black and white television. And I got a lot of help. By then I befriended a lot of cinematographers, lighting people, gaffer, production, wardrobe, art department, all of those editors. So I enlisted, I even had a producer. I did not produce it myself, I directed. So we had a producer with all real professional people work with me, professional cast, actors. And I made this short movie, For the Sake of a Dog, for the Israeli television, black and white. And I said, I'm quitting. I don't want to do this anymore, assistant director. By then I was already married. I married, and my wife wanted to go to the United States. She's studying psychology. And I said, maybe I'll go back, master degree, MA. graduate school. And I applied and I was accepted here in Los Angeles. Loyola Marymount University is a good film department. And I was accepted. So it was 79, by the end of 79, 4 years working in Israel. And both of us, my wife and myself, we came back to Los Angeles. She went to UCLA. I went to Loyola Marymount for... So your question was, how suddenly I make a movie, One More Chance, which is a feature film. And this is now 79, 90, 80. So I went to school and, I assessed the situation. First thing I see that I'm the oldest student, because of course I went to school, I started at 21 when I was undergraduate. Now I'm 29. And most of graduate students in America graduate school are 22, 24. I was the oldest, and with tons of experience, 6 years of working in movies and experience. I'm coming to film school, and most of them, even when they come from undergraduate, they didn't take undergraduate classes in cinema. Only in graduate school, they decided to go to cinema. So I understand that part of the curriculum, part of the program is, by the end, graduate student is expected to make a short movie, up to 30 minutes, maximum 30 minutes. So through the year, 2.5 years, whatever it takes, to write a script, engage in classes, and at some point make this one movie which will grant him the degree, him or her. And I I started to write a script. I like very much crime movies and social dramas. That's the way I saw myself, somebody who makes, social dramas, crime, social drama, this area, the social commentary. So I wrote a script like this. Well, it was called a different script name, but One More Chance, about a prisoner coming out of prison and trying to put the pieces of his life back together, 30 minutes. And while I'm in school, I meet in the corridor another Israeli student. I was surprised. Also in undergraduate school, I met some Israeli, because Israelis did not go all the way to Hollywood to study cinema at the time, as I told you. But still, I met few. And I meet this guy in Loyola Marymount, David Warmark. He's a well-to-do producer nowadays. I said, David, he was undergraduate. I said, David, listen, I have an idea. I showed him the movie one For the Sake of a Dog, the one I made in Israel. He was pretty impressed. I said, David, listen, I already made a 30-minute movie. I don't want to make a 30-minute movie. I want to use those 2.5 years that I'm here to make a feature film, 90 minutes. And I already wrote a script, 30 minutes. But how about if you want to produce and I want to direct, together we'll make a feature film? He liked the idea. And how we're going to make it will convince the school, the university, the department, that it's beneficiary to the cinema department to produce a full feature movie. So the school will produce the movie, the film school in the Loyola Marymount. So I expanded the script to 90 minutes, made it a full story of a guy coming out of prison, trying to put his life together. And we went to school, to the heads of the department, whatever it takes, and we convinced them that it will be beneficial if they create a class, and the class will be producing a movie. I have the experience, and this is great for all the students. It was a win-win situation, no question about it. And they agreed. We created a class, for 3 semesters at least. You need a year to, and we'll teach. There will be a supervisor, professor, supervisor, teacher, and I will share my experience with everybody. I will direct the movie, and but the rest is upon us. The film school has a great advantage. There is stages in film school. There are editing rooms. There are editing machines. There are cameras. There are equipment, tripods, lighting. What they usually don't supply you is film. Even if you have to make your short movie 30 minutes, you have to buy film. We didn't have video. There was no video. 1980, there was no video. No, there was video, but very bulky, tapes, huge tapes of video. I'm not of course, television station, this big 2-inch tape. But there was some kind of portable 1-inch tape. Very bulky, not practical for location shooting, etc. So, and all the school equipment is 16mm cameras. So what we have to do, our job was just to get film and to develop it, to find a lab that will develop it. All the rest can be done in school, in cinema. So David and me, we didn't have any money or minimal amount of money, but we find out kind of through listening and that there is a financial aid department. And in the financial aid department, if you are a loan student, you are eligible for more assistance from the department, from the financial aid, more aid. And both of us, we didn't have parents, we didn't have family, we came from another country.
Yeah.
So we presented ourselves as loan students, lonely students, we don't have family. So now we are eligible to all the tuition and everything and assistance. So, whoa, I found out I don't have to pay to school, for school. All loans and work study. You remember, work study. So I became the projectionist. You have to work to get it. I was the projectionist for the school, 35mm projectionist, and some loans. And we took all this money. We bought to buy 16mm films. There is a way to buy cheap film. It's called short ends. And we found the lab, Photocam, and they developed the film. And this was the movie, One More Chance. We found the cast, Johnny LaMatta, there was a casting director, and we did auditions. And the actor John LaMatta, that later was in television series Elf, was the lead part. And the lead lady we found, Kirstie Alley, that later of Cheers, later. But this was her first job. John LaMatta was a seasoned actor already, stage and film actor. Kirstie Alley was her first movie. And we were shooting only in weekends, because that's the way the school is built, because during the week they have classes, and or some people are working, some children are working, etc. So every weekend, Saturday, Sunday, we're shooting a little bit more. And the crew, not every time the same crew, some people are busy, not busy. If it was a set, interior, we built set in the school. Or practical set. If it was exterior, the story takes place in the streets of Los Angeles. So we are out and about in the streets of Los Angeles shooting a year and a half. Shooting. But eventually we ran out of money, totally. And we are editing. While we are shooting, we are editing some, we get some of the film. And we are accruing a big bill, a huge bill in the Photocam, because we didn't pay every time, We just we pretended that we were a company, so they put it on, like billing us, and we are not paying. So now we have a big debt over there. And that's it, we ran out of money. We edit together, we have 1 hour of movie. We didn't finish to shoot the movie, we just didn't have any more money after a year and a half. And David and me, we don't know what to do. School was not coming with money. And I hear through the rumor lines that my friends, so-called friends, they're not my friends, my bosses, Menachem Golan and Yoram Globus, they bought a film company, and they're here in town again. They're back in Hollywood, but with a new company that they bought. The name of the company is Canon Film. It was a New York-based company. They bought it, and they moved it immediately to Hollywood, to the West Coast. And I told David, first of all, we have to shop around. We have to look if there were any company who is willing to give us a little bit more money, not a lot of money, to finish this 1 hour into 1.5. And we somehow were contacting production companies, distribution company, but there was no buyer. Nobody bought into this idea and said, okay, here's your other, whatever, few tens of thousands, and go and finish the movie. So I told David, let's go. I know those guys. Let's go and meet them. And we went and we met with Menachem Golan. And he saw the material and he said, okay, this was a young company, very young. Canon itself was not a young company, but for them, they were out right at the beginning. And they wanted to produce movies. That's what they do. And I said, okay, we'll give you the money and you go and finish this movie. And then we shot another for 2 weeks. We, shooting another 2 weeks just to finish whatever scenes we didn't have a chance. They were kind of the bigger scenes. And we enlisted back the students. This time we were able to pay them a little bit and feed them, like bring pizzas for lunch, etc. And we just finished this movie, and then we moved the entire operation. They had Canon had editing rooms, and we moved the entire operation of finishing editing the movie to Canon, and the movie was completed through the money of Canon. Canon was the distribution company for this film, One More Chance. And that's how, and suddenly after a year and a half, I fulfilled my goal. I reached my goal to create a film, a full-length film, kind of a commercial with a, I was not about it. I never had it in my mind to make an artistic, individual type of movie, but rather enter the world of commercial movie making. And here it was. There was this full movie story, drama, nothing big, but that's how it was done. And
that's amazing. I didn't know when I was doing research, I didn't know that Canon, you went to them to help you finish that movie. And then from there, did they look at it and like the movie after it was fully done and say, hey, 2 years later?
Okay, let's put it this way. They never liked the movie because it was not commercial. Canon or Menachem Golan, Yoram Globus, and Canon, they were commercial movie makers. They made movie to make money. They don't make movies to have statements or to make beautiful artistic movies. That was not their intention. They make movie to make money, to make more movies, to make more money, and to make more money. So it's a commercial. It's a business. It's a business like you create lawnmowers to make money. So this movie did not make money. It was not a commercial movie. It took us to some festivals. Even without Canon, there was a festival here in Chicago, International Film Festival, got the second prize for a newcomer. Nice. I was invited to Locarno Film Festival in Switzerland, very prestige, and they took us to Cannes Film Festival. So they sold it among the other movies that they sold it because they were really in the business of selling movie. Canon was, at least in the beginning, was a sell organization. They either make movies or they buy movies from others, and they go out and they sell the movies. The rights. When you sell movie, you sell the screening rights to different countries all over the world. So among the movies they sold this one, but it was not a commercial movie. It was not a movie that would make money. So maybe they recouped the tiny investment they put in this movie. But to answer your question, they liked the movie? No, but they knew, okay, we have here a guy that knows how to tell a story in a cinematic way. So we have here a guy that we know him from years back when he was assistant director, so he knows how to run the set. He understands the schedule, money, budget, not money, budget, schedule, and he had proven himself that he can put together 90 minutes of a story, beginning, middle, end, drama, acting, the actors, he can control, direct actors, control. Let's call it direct actor, conduct a full crew, and put together a story. So maybe we can use it. So maybe I'm exaggerating, but this is the way of thinking. And by then, it took a long time, as I told you, this One More Chance. We were editing it. This small company, Canon, started to make movies. And they started with horror pictures. At the time, were very popular. Low budget independent horror pictures in the beginning of the 80s were very popular. And there was a way, this was also what Charlie Band was doing. Same thing, the same kind of. So at the time, one of the cheapest way to make a movie is horror picture. You take one castle or one building, you put your cast inside, they are being terrorized. You don't have to move location. That's the cheapest way to make a commercial movie, horror. And they were very popular in the 80s, very well. So Canon started with horror pictures, Schizoid, New Year Evil. There were a few of those titles, but they were more the inclination. Menachem Golan was the main creative of the duo, and they were cousins, by the way. Menachem Golan and Yoram Klobus, they're family, they're cousins. So it was kind of divided that Menachem Golan was more of the creative part of it, or not more of, he was the creative part of the duo, and Yoram Globus was the financial part of the duo. So, and he came from action cinema, Menachem Golan, more inclined toward action than, and horror is not, in Israel, we never saw horror pictures until the first movie that came to Israel, horror picture, was The Exorcist. There was never a horror picture, never played in Israel. Israeli audience don't buy into this illusion of horror. Maybe today, but not at that time then. So he didn't know nothing. You have to grow up with this culture of horror movies. He didn't know anything about horror, but he was good. So he realized probably that maybe to go more toward action and adventures, not horror. And somehow they produced, and he directed a movie that was called One More Chance. Erase it. Enter the Ninja. Yes. Kind of like Enter the Dragon. The idea of martial art ninja movie was presented to him by some people, Mike Stone and others. And he liked the idea. There was a script. They went to the Philippines and he directed. He was a director, Menachem Golan. Produced and directed a movie that called Enter the Ninja with Franco Nero, the Italian star, in the lead part. Sho Kasugi is the villain. Few more names. And they edited it. And now he was in his field. This was really, and they sold, it was selling pretty good compared to much better than the horror picture that they were making. And by then they already produced 6 or 7 movies. As I said, mainly they tried as horror pictures and this one action movie. So what do you do in Hollywood when you have a even semi-successful movie? What do? You do a sequel immediately, because now it's easier to sell. When you make a sequel, it's easier to sell. And they were sales organization. So, but for some reason, I don't know exactly, he didn't, the company became more and more busy, active, and he became more and more busy in running the company. Now there are more than one movie, 2 or 3 movies. He didn't want to go and direct another so-called ninja movie. And we just finished the One More Chance. We finished the festival run. We came back from Cannes Film Festival. Everything was over. And just by chance, maybe, I don't know how to describe it, I was around and he turned to me and said, would you direct for us this? We're making a sequel. And I saw the Enter the Ninja because I was part of the office. The office was smaller. We were like 10 people, all the secretaries, editing, it was a very small operation, maybe 10 people. And I was already around. I had my foot in. So was my friend David. We had our foot in the company. So I saw this movie, Enter the Ninja. I said, of course I will do. I mean, what was the question? I will direct for you any movie you want. I'm a young, inspiring director. I want to do this kind of cinema, commercial cinema. I didn't know that it was going to be action, but commercial cinema, Hollywood mainstream cinema. And then he asked me, but there is one problem. We need a lot of action. It's an action movie. What do you know? What do you know about action? You don't know anything. I said, don't worry, Golan. I know action. I will take care of action. It will be okay. I didn't know at the time that it will be okay, and so this was how this One More Chance led me to my second chance to make another now full-fledged Hollywood independent commercial movie.
I love Revenge of the Ninja. I love that. I think what I love about a lot of the movies and like why I love canon films is because there's just so much action, and Revenge of the Ninja right from the beginning of that movie, it's pretty much nonstop.
So listen, Doug, as I told you, my education is Westerns,
Yeah.
war movie. So that's the way the brain works. I mean, you cannot help it. You are influenced by what you have been educated, one way or another. So you want to make artistic movie, you make artistic. You're a comedian, you make Animal House. Because
Yeah.
so here I am, more or less in what I want to do. Yeah, but as a genre, I don't know anything about martial art movies. I never heard anything about. I knew samurai movies. I like Akira Kurosawa, of course. I saw Seven Samurai, Yojimbo, Senjorno. I saw all the samurai movies because I like this genre. But they are basically Western. It's a Western in Japan. Samurai movies are Westerns in Japan. Western movies are samurai movies in America. It's the same kind of the same genre. The same dramatic structure, most of them. So I liked it. But I never saw a Hong Kong Kung Fu movie. I never saw Bruce Lee. I didn't know Chuck Norris. I never. I for some reason, it evaded me, this genre altogether. And suddenly I'm handed this kind of movie to make a martial art movie, Kung Fu movie with ninjas. But luckily enough, I was introduced to Sho Kasugi. Sho Kasugi was the villain in the movie Enter the Ninja. They liked him very much, the company, and they decided to make a movie with him, and he will be the hero. No, not the villain. In this movie, Revenge, that's this what they told me. You have to go with this. And there was a writer already, Jim Silk. He was already, I think he almost finished the script. The script was ready, and the star was ready. And I started to learn the subject, and Sho Kasugi introduced me to the Hong Kong martial art movie, to the Kung Fu movie. He used to take me, there is a section here in Los Angeles, which is kind of a lot of Chinese population, and they show those movies, but without subtitles in Chinese. Sho knows Chinese also, Japanese and Chinese. So he used to take me over there, and we go to the theaters. I sit and I watch, and those movies are usually long movies, the Kung Fu movies. I sit there for 2 hours. I see a movie, I don't understand what's going on. And anyway, my job was to learn to look at the action, not to, never mind the story. And he introduced me, and I decided in my brain, in my inclination, my instinct told me that the company wants to make a movie for the Western audience, for a general audience. They don't want to appeal to this only the martial art enthusiast. So I have to make a hybrid movie, which Enter the Ninja was kind of also. But anyway, I have to make a hybrid movie, a movie that will be little bit Western, little bit James Bond. Let's say more James Bond. It's not a Western because it's urban. So it will be James Bond with martial art. It will be partially James Bond, partially Kung Fu movie, a martial art movie. And also kind of from an instinct, by an instinctive way, I decided, or I knew that I have to do that 50% of the movie, of the 90 minutes, has to be action. So I need to create 45 minutes action and then a short story, 45 minutes story. That's all. That's this was my guidance. That's what guided me. Try to make a movie, to direct or to create a movie which will have a so-called Hollywood Western action. Let's call it James Bond action. It will have martial art action, and it will be 45 minutes. The action part of it, at least 45 minutes. The other thing I immediately understood by instinct, but not only by instinct. If you see any James Bond movie, it starts with an action.
Yeah.
The movie opens, you're in an action sequence, and only then the story James Bond introduce himself after the action. So I said, I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to start with a bang, big action movie. And the rest is structure, 3 big action sequences, opening in the middle, at the end, one chase scene somewhere, and few more minor action sequences, let's call that. And the big one are lasting 7 minutes, they are long, 7 minutes to 10 minutes. Revenge of the Ninja on the Roof, I think we are 12 minutes at the ending. With the end sequence, and then there are like 3 minutes action sequences. So there is a structure to a movie. It's not just It's really, there is a structure, that frame that everything fits into this. And that's probably why Revenge of the Ninja looks the way you describe it. Out of all of those decisions and that I had to make, the type of the movie that I thought that will fit me as a director, the type of movie that will fit me there. Now, as I told you, I did not think that I will end up in action at all. I did not think.
Yeah.
And I did not think that this will lead to any succession later. This is one movie. Let's make it. This is called Revenge of the Ninja. It's action movie. Maybe I'll make another one more chance later, or some tragedy. I don't know what. I didn't know where the career was going. So here you are.
You did so good with it, because that movie was awesome and it did well, right?
So for Canon, it did more than well. Anecdotally, this is an anecdote. Canon company was one of few independent companies that were operating in the same arena at the time. One of them was Zoetrope, Zoetrope, Coppola. There was Shapiro Glickenhaus. There were Crown Entertainment. There were many companies, not many, let's say not many, but there were enough companies that were operating in this arena of low-budget independent movie. Either adventures, they concentrate. Corelco was one of little bit bigger than the others. And they did genre movies, what we call genre movies, either action, adventures, horror, or soft porn, softcore porno, kind of TNA. They used to call them TNA movies. So every one of those companies specialized in the type of movie. So Canon was one of them. Now, every one of those companies, the goal of all of those companies is to make a movie that will be picked up by a studio for distribution. Making movie is much easier than distributing movie. Distributing movie in North America, US and Canada, is a complicated process with a lot of knowledge and advertising and theaters and regions, and it's pretty complex. Small, tiny company cannot do it by itself. So for them, the goal is to get a distribution by a major company. And when I say major, we mean the studios, MGM, Universal, Paramount. And there were few smaller distribution companies. So every movie that every one of those companies finished, first they presented to the big ones, to the 7 big ones, or to the 6. United Artists was not existing anymore. So there were the big 6 one, Paramount, Warner Brothers, Fox, Universal. And if they were rejected, they would go to a smaller company. But this was the holy grail, if you get it. So Canon was the same, no exception. Every movie they made, they showed to every. And now Canon was a company that globally they distributed themselves. They sold it. They did not distribute. They sold the rights. But in America, in North America, it has to be distributed one way or another.
Yeah.
And they were trying, and they were rejected all the time by the major studios. But the movies played, they had including Enter the Ninja. It played in America by independent company. That's one. And then here you have Revenge of the Ninja. Non-star. Sho Kasugi is not a non-star. Nobody knows him. And they show it around. And Canon had a good relationship with MGM because we used to do all our post-production work in MGM, in the laboratory, the sound mixing. So there was already a relationship. And MGM sees the Revenge of the Ninja and they say to Canon, yes, you're getting a yes. We're going to distribute this movie for you. We like it. Canon was, they were, Menachem Golani or Ghost, they were elated. Finally, they scored. A major studio distribution company will distribute the movie. And MGM took it very seriously with an advertising campaign, television, radio, like every legit movie, like a legit movie. And they opened out 800 theater in a system that was called flip-flop. They have the system, I don't know if it still exists. It was east of the Mississippi, west of the Mississippi. So you do 800 prints. Prints are expensive. Even at the time, every print was $1,000 to create a print for the theater, 35 millimeter print. So that's quite an expense.
Yeah.
Including advertising. You have to, on top of it, you have to put advertising and shipping cost, everything. So they opened 800 theaters east of the Mississippi first, ran it for a few weeks, they moved it. Now, whoa, this was a surprise. In New York, for the first 2 weeks, it was at the top of the box office, Revenge of the Ninja. It came out of the blue. You know, first of all, I guess first the martial art crowd went to see the movie, and then they came home and they told their friends. It was a movie for men, for young men. I mean, women did not go and see this movie. But anyway, to this target audience liked the movie, and they went out and they bought the ticket, and the movie was kind of successful, not like a major movie successful. By no means, we cannot compare it to a James Bond movie or any other French Connection that were at the time. You know, those movies were at the time, the action movies that came out at the time, and not the same, but for independent small movie, considerably, it was a big success. And Canon was happy, MGM was happy. Now they are talking bigger numbers, not huge numbers of money, bigger numbers. And of course, what do they want to do? Sequel.
Did you see it in the movie theater when it was out in Los Angeles? What was that like? The first time you sat in the theater and saw your movie?
Of course, listen, we see a lot of screenings before it goes out.
Yeah.
You know? And then I had to see the screenings with MGM, etc. But we decided, David produced the same guy, David Moore, produced the movie,
cool.
Revenge of the Ninja. And we said, okay, I said, David, we have to go and buy a ticket and go see the movie in a real theater. And let's go to the neighborhood, not in Los Angeles, there is an area, Westwood, where they used to show the movie, Prestige Theaters or Hollywood Boulevard. But then, of course, the neighborhoods. I said, but this is a movie of a neighborhood. It's not a movie of Westwood. So we went to the Culver City over there, a neighborhood, which the audience is mixed, ethnically mixed, you know, blue color, white, black audience, Hispanic, mixed, you know. And of course, when we go to a theater, only men with their sons. You know, so the boys or boys came along without parents. So this was the crowd, boys, men, mainly, maybe, you know, I don't want to discriminate against women. There were probably also women. And boy, now that it starts to run, and I see that the audience participate, you know, they interact with the screen. The boys are screaming, they're standing on the chairs, and they move in the aisle. So I see that there is enthusiasm that it works. You know, Doug, listen, we know, maybe we don't know. The medium of cinema is a type of entertainment tool that manipulates audience emotion. So is theater, let's say. I mean, not much different, but cinema much stronger. Cinema has bigger influence on human emotions. And if you see people crying, laughing, screaming in theater, means that it's successful. The means are working, are really manipulating the emotion. So there was a lot of screaming, shouting, interacting with the screen, of course. You know, it was a boys' movie. When we came out of the theater, there was a kind of a column next to the theater, and two boys, 8, 10, it was an R-rated movie, but you know, they snuck in, maybe 11 years old. And they are trying to jump and flip from the column to the sidewalk. I told David, this is a success. It's okay. We made it. If two boys are trying to fly from this pedestal to the sidewalk, maybe 8 foot, 10 foot high, they're trying to fly, to flip somersault we made it. So yeah, it was a nice. But I must make this point. We still treated. We didn't treat this movie, or we didn't have the notion that this is a big major movie, major cinematic movie. We still treated it, okay, we made this independent, small budget movie, B movies, they used to call them B movies. And it will be over, it will play for 1 year, it will go to some minor theaters. I don't know if it was violent. I don't even know if it will play in airlines, in the airplanes. And there is the span of life of this movie is half a year, and then it will be forgotten, and that's it. Maybe we'll be lucky. We'll make another movie. So that's the way we treated it. Us, and we didn't keep any outtakes. We didn't keep, like, they treat the big movies, the major movies. They keep the probes. They keep the merchandise. We didn't have anything. Now people are looking for stuff. There is nothing left. No.
Did you personally keep any mementos, like the script or anything?
Very little. I have the mask, the silver mask of the bad ninja. I took with me. I took two. I donated one to. There is a museum here in Los Angeles, a martial art museum. I gave them one, and I keep one. And Sho Kasugi gave me a sword, katana, as a gift. At the time, I didn't know. I was too ignorant, but it's customary in Japan, in the East, to give gifts. And so, because I directed the movie, he gave me a nice katana. I have it here. I don't have anything else from this. I have the mask.
But that's cool that you at least.
Yeah. I have the mask and the gift, the sword, the gift. And I get so many requests for. Do you have anything? Can we buy anything? I have posters. Some of the posters. Maybe the press kit is lying somewhere. I got at the time they had the kits of black and white and color stills that they gave the theaters.
Nice.
To hang in the lobby cars. They used to call them the lobby cars. So I have a set of black and white, a set of color. That's all. But the reason was that that's the way we treated those movies. We did not think that they will last for more than half a year, the span of the life of those movies.
Yeah, now 30 years
it was
later.
It was followed by sequels, Revenge of the Ninja, Revenge of Ninja 3, The Domination, which was not as successful, but the jewel of the crown, the pinnacle was American Ninja. American Ninja went off the roof, they broke all records for independent, low budget. We're not talking Ninja Turtles, but American Ninja broke all records for this type of movies, independent, low budget action movie.
Yeah, so let's talk about that. I think it's so cool just looking at the movies that you directed. It was like for 3 years straight, you were working with those two men, Michael Dudakov, and Steve James. Actually, Steve, 4 years or 4 movies in a row, because you did Riverbend after that. But it's funny when you think of Michael Dudakov. I don't know if he did any ninja movies before American Ninja, but he was in Bachelor Party with Tom Hanks. That's how I remembered him, because I was born in 86, so I saw these later. But I remember seeing him in American Ninja, and I'm like, that's the guy from Bachelor Party.
Not only, he was also there was a television show, Star in the Family. He was in this television show. It was not a huge show, but he was a regular in Star in the Family. I think it was called Star in the Family, Star of the Family, Star in the Family. But so he kind of became, I was within Canon, and I became kind of director of sequel. In between, I also, I made the Ninja 3, The Domination with Lucinda Dickey and Sho Kasugi, which were not as successful as Revenge of the Ninja. And then they needed a director to do the sequel for Breakin. Breakin was a huge success for Canon. Huge success. And for MGM. So immediately sequel. And it's one of the only sequels I know today, I learned, in the history of Hollywood that came out in the same year. The original and the sequel, both of them came out in 1 year. In 1 year. So it's maybe the only movie that came out in 1 year, sequel. So I was enlisted, because I knew already Lucinda, I was enlisted to do the Breaking 2 Electric Boogaloo, which was also a very successful movie.
Sam, I got to tell you, if you could get a nickel for every time that whenever somebody says something they say electric, but it could be anything at all. Like on a golf course, my buddy would be like, hole 2, electric boogaloo.
Yeah, it became a meme. There is a big article. Somebody wrote a big article about this. And sadly enough, lately in a negative connotation, very negative connotation. There is the Boogaloo's movement. The Boogaloo movement is a white supremacy that believes in the resurrection of civil war, sequel to the Civil War, Electric Boogaloo. The same thing, but in a negative connotation. Yes, you're right. And but also successful movie, which also survived the test of time, like Revenge of the Ninja. Strangely enough, Ninja 3: The Domination became a huge cult movie because this is one strange movie, let me tell you, but became a huge cult movie lately in the last 7 years, 8 years. But then Menachem Golan, he wants to go back to the Ninja, you know, in between we had this Electric Boogaloo. He said, I want to continue with the Ninja, but I have an idea. Menachem Golan tells me, I want to do an American Ninja. This is basically an absurd idea because this whole ninja thing is a Japanese, it's not even Chinese, you know, martial art go between Korea, Japan, China, whatever. Ninja is only Japanese, only Japanese. This is part of the culture, of the heritage, of the mythology of Japan, of the martial art of Japan. And he wants to make American Ninja. Listen, I don't care. I don't care. It's your company. Whatever you want to make, we'll make. And I actually like the idea. Why not? So that's how it was born. That's how it was launched. Let's make a movie. No Shokasugi, nobody. American Ninja. And I was involved in writing the script. There was a writer, of course. We hired them, right? There were producers. I directed. There were producers, Gideon Amir and Avi Kleinberger, and there was a writer, Paul de Milke. He was hired, and all of us together, we started to work on the script, and the character came to life. He will be a soldier. It will be a James Deanish type of a character, chip on the shoulder, the reluctant hero. All of this was developed as we were working on the script. And then the script was done, and there was time for casting. And we decided, in Hollywood, usually casting goes through agencies. The company sends the description of the characters of the intended movie to the agencies. The agents send the actors for reading, auditions. But the other way is open audition. Open audition, anyone can come. Agent, not agent, doesn't matter. Actor, not actor. And we were looking, we didn't know if we were looking for an actor or martial artist. Maybe we'll find another Bruce Lee, you know, who knows, or another Chuck Norris. So it was open. So there was a message was sent to all the martial art dojos, the schools in the area, and to the agencies as well. And many people came in for this part, for Joe, and other people came from the other part that Steve James did. And I believe there are like 400 young kids, young actors who came in. And first they went through, before they even came to read for the part, they went through a test, martial art, to see if they are capable, or if they are real, if they're capable, if they can do it. They didn't have to be martial artists, but good enough so they can, because Lucinda Dickey, she was not a martial artist. She was, when we did Ninja 3, we also looked for the same thing, either a martial artist, let's say Cynthia Rothrock, or a dancer. And Lucinda was a dancer. So here in this case, we look for an athletic guy, or a martial artist, and we see many. So first they had the martial artists with, I don't remember who, with Mike Stone, with Steve Lambert, whatever, the stunt people, the action people. And if they passed this test, they came to see us for reading. And I saw many of them for reading, and many of the girls, and many for the part of Jackson, Curtis Jackson. And among them came Michael Dudakov. I didn't know if he came open call or an agent sent him. I didn't have any knowledge about him. I didn't know if he was in another movie. But I liked his demeanor. I liked his appearance, his look. He was not a martial artist, but he was very athletic. Michael was very athletic. And by then, later on, I found that he already had a career in modeling, and he worked on the television show. He worked in Bachelor Party, and he also had a starring role by then in a movie called Radioactive Dream that was directed by Albert Payon. So I saw the movie later. They showed me the movie after so as it always worked, finally by thinning down, we finally had finalists. The finalists, we read them with the different Jackson. I will tell you, the Jackson was not so much. We liked Steve James so much that there was no question. He was right away. We saw him, we liked him. He was a martial artist. We liked his appearance, everything about him. So he got the part already. His agent agreed to the deal, I guess. And among the five, we paired them with different actresses. Ended up with Judy Aronson from Friday the 13th.
She's great,
and we liked the most Michael from all of them. And I told you, he already had one movie, Radioactive Dream, in a starring role. So that's by this process, we ended up with Michael Dudakov and with Steve James. And it went on, American Ninja was so successful that there were sequels. And Michael did some movies by himself, and Steve James was added to the crew of Delta Force, to the cast of Delta Force. So they had their career in Canon. They had a thriving career in Canon, both of them.
And this was like the same time with Canon. Obviously, you were there for all of it. And it was pretty cool. I saw you posted about the book that came out pretty recently, the one about the history of Canon films.
Yeah, there is a book which is called the book, Sorry for abandoning you for a second.
Don't you worry about it.
This is the Stories from the Trenches.
Yeah, I got to order
that. It was
that.
written by Marco Siedelman, and it's basically a book that follows the movies, the movies that I directed, my career. But it's really a book about Canon. There is a lot about general stories and knowledge about Canon and about the independent, low-budget genre movies of the 80s and the 90s. But it follows the narrative follows the movies that I made, and this is the book. So
that's awesome.
If anybody is interested, you guys can get this book, Stories from the Trenches.
That's so cool. And then right about that, with Canon, the reason I obviously love your movies, sure, but the other movies that they did at the same time, because I think it was like 85 or 86 was Death Wish 3. They did Death Wish 4. They were also doing like Stallone Cobra. So they were doing so well, even on the other end of it.
Right. So what happened among the companies that we were talking about, the independent, everybody wanted to be, there was a term there then that was called the mini major. Majors were the six we mentioned, Universal, MGM, Warner, Fox. But there were a couple of companies that were trying to create mini studio. The most successful at the time was Coppola with Zoetrope. He had a company which was almost a studio. He bought he had a studio here, a small studio in across from Paramount on Melrose Boulevard. There's a small studio. He bought it, and then he moved his studio to San Francisco. Later there are a few more, of course, Spielberg with DreamWorld. But at the time, everybody wanted to become a mini major, and Canon grew to become the biggest of all of them. They didn't have a lot. They didn't have a physical studio, but they had more movies. They were producing more movies than any other independent company or any other major company at the time. There was a moment that they would produce like 40 movies a year.
Wow.
To the top. You're mentioning the top years, 86, 87. This was the top of the company. And they started to work with stars, not the big major star, not the mega stars. I mean, Stallone, but stars from the past, Charles Bronson. Bronson started to work with them. They created Dudakov. They created Van Damme. They created Chuck Norris was already kind of established, but they created him. They elevated him. They didn't get the Tom Hanks and they didn't get the big names.
Yeah.
They didn't need to come and work for independent company. They can work for the studios. But Sylvester Stallone was a big star at the time, and other star name worked for them. Not the A-list, what we call the A-list, but and the company was making bigger and bigger movie. The biggest movie supposedly was to be Superman #4. They got the rights to do Superman #4 with Christopher Reeve.
Oh wow!
So yeah, you're right. Big names. Faye Dunaway. big names used to work for Canon, and the company was a madhouse. At that time, the company was a madhouse. We were doing those small, still doing American Ninja number 2, Avenging Force. But we became the fringe, the side of the company, nobody paying attention to us. So I did whatever I wanted at that time. Because they were busy now with big budget, with Toby Hooper, Invaders from Mars, Invasion USA with Chuck Norris.
Oh, yeah.
So those suddenly became big budget movies, and our movies, they didn't bother us at all. I did whatever I wanted.
That's good.
Yeah, but the company became a big company. But of course, we know today, historically, retrospectively, didn't have a base financially. The company didn't have a base, and quality didn't have a base. They did not produce this company that produced about 400 movies. I can say that they had one really A-list good movie, Runaway Train.
Yeah, Eric Roberts. Yeah,
that's the only, in my opinion. Many other people think about the same thing. I mean, they did a movie with John Cassavetes, but that's not a mega movie.
Yeah.
But they did an opera, Othello. But one excellent movie, only one, Runaway Train. And you cannot sustain a company, but the studios, maybe not every year they have great mega movie, but once every 3 years every studio must have 1 or 2 great huge box office success and critical success. And Canon didn't have the financial base or the quality to sustain for a long time, and the growth was going crazy, and it was inevitable from a corporation point of view. It doesn't matter if you make movie or you sell toothpaste, that such a company will collapse, because there was no income, there was no profit.
One thing I read,
in the final balance, in the finals balance, there was no profit.
One thing I read, and I don't know if you knew about this. Again, this is something I read online, so I don't know if it's 100% true. But Canon purchased the rights to Spider-Man to do a live action.
There was a moment that those hero comic books were not very successful and sought after.
Oh, they weren't.
The big boom came after Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man.
Yeah, but Captain America bombed.
Yeah, so they had Captain
in the late
America,
70s. Yeah, I interviewed the production designers.
They were able to purchase the rights to Superman, even though Superman was big, but was not big like today, the huge event movies. So Superman was a success, but somehow they succeeded to purchase the right to Superman, to Spider-Man, to Captain America, but they didn't do anything with it. They didn't have either or enough money or enough knowledge or whatever. Yeah. And only later they became what they are today, the super movies, the super mega movies of the comic books.
Yeah, we discussed the second Captain America TV movie because they were trying to do it to get a series, and it's just it's so bad. When you try to do those effects back then that they could do now, it just doesn't look good.
No, of course no. And Canon, the company, did not have this vision of the studios, the understanding, the vision of the studio, that you understand that you make one movie and it's successful, then you make a bigger movie, the sequel is bigger, because there is merchandise, there is theme park. For Canon, it was one movie after the other. So they make American Ninja, which is successful. They make American Ninja number 2, kind of the same budget, little bit less. Then they make American Ninja number 3 with 10% of the budget of number 2. So they didn't have this thinking, this vision of we can take something and make it huge, because there are theme park, merchandise, there are money beyond, not only movies. For them, it was only making movies. No, they didn't have this knowledge and vision of the big studios, of the big major studios, which understand that when you make one movie, the sequel gets bigger, and the third sequel is even bigger, until you kill until you squeeze the lemon all the way.
I like American Ninja 2. I really like just Steve, you could tell obviously from the first one, but I'm sure just being around each other, like Steve James and Michael's just chemistry on camera in the second movie. I don't know. Steve James has so many funny lines, like when he's picking up the girl at the party that they go to, and just him, the way he's fighting people, like he's almost Incredible Hulk. All those guys are piled on him. He throws them all off at the bar. That bar scene's amazing.
We decided it was intentional. We made American Ninja, the original one, was not heavy on humor. There was a vision. This is going to be kind of a James Dean movie, action movie. Rebel without a cause. I don't know, something like this. And there is dark themes in American Ninja. The military is not really them. They are not loyal. It's dark themes. When we came to do the second movie, Ninja 3, the American Ninja number 2, we went to South Africa, and we were suddenly in this kind of tropical atmosphere, and we adapted the script to be in this kind of tropical atmosphere, and it called itself, we shed ourselves from this serious, dark part of and suddenly now we are dealing with science fiction, with fictional ninjas, with some scientists, so we are entering some fantasy land and comedy. So that's why we let ourselves go live. I always, all my life, I wanted to do a brawl in a saloon brawl. So I got my chance here. I squeezed it in, what you were mentioning, Steve James. So finally I squeezed in a saloon brawl from a Western into a ninja movie, and other stuff that leaned itself into life. The only major difference that maybe hurt a little bit American Ninja number 2, that in American Ninja, the original, the duo, Michael Dudakov, Steve James, they don't have a mission. The troubles are coming upon them, and they have to solve it, and they get involved because of their characters. And in American Ninja 2, they had a mission right away from the let's go. From the beginning, they came for a mission. And so this is diverted from our principal vision of American Ninja, that the heroes don't have a mission. They get involved in the trouble. The trouble are following them. It happens that the trouble do follow them, but they come with a mission, which is a little bit different. But that allowed us to introduce the light tone, the comical tone to the movie.
No, definitely. And it's cool to see them again. Like I never saw until I watched it last week, Avenging Force. It's cool to see them in another movie. And I like that movie a lot. That movie's so good. John P. Ryan, who's the bad guy in Death Wish 4, he's great in this movie.
Yeah, he was in Runaway Train. He was the warden.
Yeah.
He's the warden in Runaway Train. That's how I knew. That's how I met him. That's how I chose him, because I saw Runaway Train. Correct. And Avenging Force is completely different ball of game. It's a different thing. It was written by James Wood. The script was ready. I was not involved in writing the script in any shape or form. Nothing. I was involved in shaping the movie, but the script was there. We didn't change the script. James Booth wrote the script. He's in the movie. And but by then, it was after American Ninja, before we did American Ninja Turbo. But coming back from the Philippines, Steve and Michael were already friends on a personal level.
Yeah.
They were obviously on the screen. We know today they had this, whatever it takes, the chemistry that it takes to be in the screen, even if you hate each other, but still on personal level. Because in the beginning, they had a rough beginning. They didn't become a friend right away. But on the screen, there was this chemistry, those two guys, buddy, that in some movies it works, some movies, it doesn't work. By Butch Cassidy, wow, those two guys are really, really good together. You believe that they will sacrifice each other's life for the other. And so by then, when we went to do Avenging Force, this chemistry was already there, and the friendship was there, and it's obvious. Though in Avenging Force, Steve does not finish the movie. He doesn't last. His character doesn't last all the way to the end. But then we got back then we flew to South Africa, to Cape Town to do, and by then the chemistry between the two of them was already working, and they knew each other, little nuances and how to interact with each other. So it works pretty well. So it was a good duo. It was a good pair. And then they did Steve and Michael continue American Ninja number 5, I think, number 4. Again, they were together, and so on. Yeah, so it was successful. Listen, every movie we know today, American Ninja is quite a success in terms of low budget independent action movie. Huge success. We believe it's 35 years and it's still playing in all the channels and late night, and it's reissued on DVDs, Blu-rays. We estimate that the movie will have been seen by more than 100 million people worldwide in this span of 35 years. And every young kid, most of the young kids in the world, they know American Ninja. So there is a secret to it. You're thinking, why this movie success? Because there are many, many movies in the world. Every year there are hundreds and thousands of movies. So yeah, part of it is of course, most of all is the character and the charisma of Michael Dudakov. No question about it. He's the lead, he's the star, he leads the movie. Then the chemistry between him and Steve James, the buddy, the two of them, and the love story with Judy Aronson. So those 3 elements, of course, there are ninjas, there is a story, there is betrayal, there is drama, there is everything. But those elements, Dudakov, Steve James, Michael Dudakov, Judy Aronson, and the very elaborate fight sequences and action sequences, and that's what made the movie. So no big secret here.
Yeah, it's funny. Like when you say, and I believe you, like the movies that you did were low budget. It's funny the way a low budget looked in the 80s or maybe even the 90s. But if you watch a low budget movie today, there's like a huge difference between that and the movie in the movie theater. It's insane.
Right. Doug, we didn't know then. We called ourselves low budget. Today, when we look at back, it's classified medium budget. It's not low budget. We went to the Philippines. We had a huge crew, 3 camera units, 9 weeks of shooting, 6 days a week. This is not a low budget. Low budget is 5 weeks shooting in 1 unit, horror picture today. So we had more budget then. Our budget then was bigger than low budget of today.
Yeah.
So it was not a tiny movie. The crew in the Philippines was more than 200 people, the crew. And we were shooting 9 weeks, six days a week. This is a luxurious, and I was not denied of anything as a director. I want a motorcycle. A motorcycle was not in the script. We wanted a motorcycle we couldn't find in the Philippines. We flew one from Hong Kong. We wanted this specific ninja motorcycle. A motorcycle came from whatever I asked for was there. We need the 300 martial artists to do this big scene, was so-called. So we titled the Ninja School. We got 300 martial artists. So it was not jeeps, explosions, stunt people, whatever we wanted. We got whatever we requested, whatever I requested as a director, or my crew, or my stunt crew, or my action people. We got. So it was not a tiny budget. Today we know it. At the time, we called ourselves low budget because compared to a James Bond movie, we were low budget. Compared to any action movie that the studios made, we were low budget. But today we know. Today it's classified medium budget, they call it. And that's why the look is big, because we got everything we wanted, really. And those movies were much longer. There were scenes that were taken out. Menachem Golan did not like movies which are longer than 90 minutes. 95 was the top of the top that he allowed, and the only exception was Avenging Force, that he let me go a little bit over 95. So we still have scenes. So yes, you got the best scenes, the scenes which didn't work out, the scenes which were the quality was not great, boom, they're out of the movie. So that's why today when you look at them, and you cannot compare them to the day movies with all the special effects, the optical effects, the screens. If you look at Fast and Furious, or you look at any of the superhero movies, no comparison whatsoever. But for the time, True Lies was bigger than American Ninja, but not much bigger,
Yeah, that's what I mean.
There were no much bigger action in True Lies or Predator than in American Ninja. But those were big budget movies. True Lies, Predators were big budget movies, but the same kind, the same genre. So so Canon was able to compete. We could compete with them more or less, especially in the home video market. When the kids went to the rental shop to rent a cassette VHS, they didn't see a difference between Predator and American Ninja. For them, it was the same quality.
So at this point, are you still going to the movie theater? Like, say, even Avengers, are you still going yourself and watching?
Listen, luckily, I'm still member of the Directors Guild. Still retired, but and when the end of every year, the end of the year comes, we are invited to all the movies because they want us to vote in the Academy Award and the Directors Guild. So I'm basically in the last 4 months of every year, starting September, October, November, December, and January, I'm invited to see all the movies of the entire year. And so that's where I see, and those are usually screenings in theater. They do send us DVDs. We get the DVDs. Yeah. Also, this year I saw the movies in DVDs. But so it gives me a chance to go and see movies in theater. But I tend to, I more and more, I'm really interested in social dramas, etc. So the trial of the Chicago 7 to me is much more interesting in any of hero superhero.
Oh, I agree.
I rather see Chicago 7 than the Avengers. Let's put it this way.
Yeah, and then one thing on your bio,
and I also get this feeling. It's not only me. Everybody said that all the big action movie, they're recycled movie. You have seen it. You go and see the movie, and you get this feeling. I've seen this movie already. I see it's a recycled material. The same stories, the same character, the same heroes. And here you have, interesting, surprising movies. Nomadland. I'm talking about this year, Chicago 7, US versus Billie Holiday. Good, excellent social.
Oh yeah. And now, Sam, on your bio, I don't know the last time you updated it, but it said you had some films that you're working on.
No, it's probably not. This is probably like a few years back. At this moment. We are, 2021. I'm 71 years old. I just had a birthday last week. I'm not pursuing any cinematic movie project. This is very hard work. But not only because of this, but we spoke about it. The budgets are very low. I'm not invited to do big studio movies with huge budget, 100 million, 20 million, 50 million. So, and if people will ask me to direct, they want me to be in this field of action movies. And the action movies today, the independent, are really, really low budget. I have a good friend of mine works in Isaac Florentine. He's still directing. And also what he's doing is disappearing. But we are required to do it in 5 weeks today in a budget of 1 million. And it's not really action. So you can squeeze in maybe 2 action sequences, maybe, because there is no more money left to do anything. Action costs money. So no. So that's it for me. I'm busy in the field of nostalgia. I'm devoting my time to maintain the legacy.
That's awesome.
Make sure the legacy doesn't disappear.
Yeah.
Not only specifically the movies I directed, but in general, there was this window of movie making. It was throughout the 90s, throughout the 80s, 1980s, and half of the 1990s, which independent genre, low budget movies with good quality.
Yeah.
Good director, Joe Zito, Albert Payun, Toby Hooper, Steve Carver, and all of us, this group made those movies that they were very successful, and they have a look. And there is today a nostalgic feeling, and people like to see those movies because there is a different feeling to those action movies compared to today's action movies, which are more electronic and more influenced by video games and optical effects, etc. So some people discover those, either they have memories and the nostalgic feeling for those movies, or they discover those movies and they see, wow, there is a different look, different feeling, for bad or for good or for worse, but still it's different. And this is this window of time in the Hollywood history, of Hollywood, that we call the independent, low-budget genre movies of the 80s, of the 90s, which really fueled the VHS business, the home cassette business, or was fueled by the home cassette business.
Yeah.
So that's where the money came from. And Doug, we are talking for 2 hours now.
This is great.
Which is good.
Perfect.
And I really, usually it starts to wear down after 2 hours. That's my experience.
Oh no, this is perfect. No, that was the end. I wanted to see what you're up to. Yeah.
If you feel that you want to continue at any other time, no problem.
Oh no, this was perfect. I honestly like all the interviews I did, even when I talked to like Eric Roberts or Lisa or William Sadler, anyone, I like finding out how they started. That's the most important thing for me. So I loved hearing how you got started in it, and then touching a little bit of your history, and then of course with Canon. So Sam, thank you so much.
Now, Doug, through email, if you are interested, I don't know if you are editing, if you inserting few photos, I can give you access to photos. If you're interested more in the earlier, I will.
I want a young Sam photo.
Yeah, I have it's a, what they call it, box, Dropbox.
Dropbox, you're saying, yeah.
Different folders. There are folders even going all the way back to Lepke and to my early movies in the university, in the Loyola Marymount.
Oh, I love that, yeah.
And or whatever, I will, so, send me, you send me email, I'll send you email. Sure. with the link, and you can download any of the picture and use them. And if you need from others, because there are many from all the different movies. So
cool.
If you see in the internet any pictures particular that you like, I will give you access to this.
Sweet. Well, thank you, Sam.
Thank you very much. It was a terrific interview. Interesting. You have an interesting field that you're interested in, and you explore it. And thank you for having me.
I love sequels.
And I hope it's like your viewers and listeners will enjoy it.
Yes. Thank you, Sam. I'll keep in touch, and have a good rest of your day.
Okay, you too. Bye.
Bye.